and they don't want their kids going to another ill-advised war. What would you say to them? Because you don't have kids.
Yeah,
and by the way,
that's a good point. That's a good point. I didn't think about that. My point is that, hey, Brian, thanks for taking my call. I'm going to say something that's going to be a little crazy, but I personally think Iran is the closest thing we've had to Nazi Germany since Nazi Germany. They're definitely exporting terrorism. I mean, that's this regime. Now, keep in mind that Germany is still there. We took out the Nazi regime. And I do believe that this regime in Iran has to be taken out. And I think that maybe we should go to war with them and just take them out. A lot of the Iranian people want these people out, and Iran should be using their oil and their natural resources to make their country a strong economic force and better for their people.
Okay, so with that being said, what would you say about Donald Trump, who campaigned on he would be a peace president and a no-war president? Why would you vote?
I think that
if you're okay with him going to war, you seem to be very positive, and you think we should go to war with Iran, then why would you vote for someone who claimed he was a no-war peace president?
Okay, because of the fact that if we wouldn't have gone to war with Nazi Germany might still be around. If we were just like bombing them.
Al, I'm not talking to you right now specifically about Nazi Germany. And by the way, I think there's a distinct difference between Nazi Germany and Iran. But hold on that thought for a moment. Donald Trump ran on the fact that he would be a peaceful president and he would be a no new war president. If you think we should go to war with Iran, which, by the way, I disagree with you on, then why would you vote for him?
Well, I think that based on this, first of all, I voted for him because I thought he was the best choice. Second of all, I do want to tell you that I don't think I think he's overpromised and underdelivered. I will agree with you on that. On this case, the more I think about it, I think going to war with Iran is the solution to get rid of this terrorism.
And what have we done? And what have we done to Iran? What have we done? What did Trump do?
Bomb him. I mean, I don't know. He's bombed them, and he's.
What do we do, though?
All he's doing is just kicking the can. All we're doing is just kicking the can down the road.
So you're okay with kicking the can and spending our money, but you're not okay with spending that money defending Ukraine?
Well, we're talking about Iran. Ukraine is a whole different issue.
It's a war, and our allies were invaded by an evil, murderous dictator in Vladimir Putin. So does that mean we should go to war with Vladimir Putin in Russia? Should we be bombing Russia right now?
Should we be getting into a war? I think that if it comes to a war with Russia, if Western Europe is threatened like by Russia the way it was by Nazi Germany, I think war is inevitable. Absolutely.
So you'd be okay with us not only going to war right now with Iran, but starting a war with Russia? Is North Korea next too?
I mean, I've been hoping right now I'd be okay to get rid of Iran, get that regime out.
What evidence? What evidence do you have that Iran is a direct threat to the United States of America right now? As before Donald Trump decided to bomb Iran, what evidence did you hear from anybody in the Trump administration that would lead you to suggest that Iran was a direct threat to the United States of America?
I think they're a threat to the Middle East. I think everybody agrees with that.
Okay, so you're okay with going to war with another country if they're a threat not to us but to our allies. Then why are so many MAGA Republicans not in favor of us defending Ukraine? Please explain that.
Because they're idiots. Because those MAGA Republicans are idiots.
That's most of the Republican Party. You're calling most of the Republican Party idiots.
I don't think most of the Republican Party.
Can you name me 10 MAGA Republicans in office right now that think we should be continuing to fund Zelensky? Donald Trump is an idiot, right? Because he called Zelensky.
I thought we were talking about Iran.
You are talking about Iran. Yes, you are, sir. But we have another war that is going on right now in Ukraine, and so many MAGA Republicans.
I called in to talk about Iran.
Oh, I understand that, but I'm talking about
starting a war with Iran.
And you're talking about starting a war with a country with no direct evidence that they are a direct threat to the United States of America.
Aren't you talking about sleeper cells? You're talking about.
Well, yeah. Guess what? We weren't talking. We weren't.
They are a threat.
We weren't. According to Kristi Noem, they were not a threat until Donald Trump decided to bomb Iran, and then she put a 90-day threat to America that we could be looking at terrorist threats because you were okay with Donald Trump bombing a site where nothing was accomplished. Do you understand the idiocy
I think
in that?
if we get rid of Iran, the Iran regime, we'll get rid of these
So you think Donald Trump?
Well.
So you think Donald Trump got rid of Iran by bombing a site where we're told there was no uranium there and nothing was accomplished? You think that's getting rid of Iran?
The uranium has nothing to do with it. The uranium has.
It has everything to do with it. What are you?
Only 1 point.
What are you talking about? The main reason why they did that, all they talk about is furthering their nuclear capabilities. It's every reason why they claim they did it.
Well, I understand that. That's what they talked about. And what I'm talking about, forget about the uranium. It's a terrorist threat that they're exporting throughout the world that we should be most concerned about.
What do you think is a more terrorist threat around the world right now, Iran or Vladimir Putin, who has invaded Ukraine? And if he wins this war, he'll be invading another country. It could be Taiwan. I don't know. What do you think is more of a threat to the world right now? I would say Putin.
The thing is that right now I'm talking about Iran.
Okay,
let's take care of Iran first.
No, but your priorities are messed up.
That's what I'm saying.
Let's take care of Iran first. Why do you think no president in the last 30 years has done this?
Because they're idiots.
So every president is an idiot, but Donald Trump is not the idiot. Is that what you're claiming?
Yeah, because no, you said all the presidents in the last 40 years.
Gotcha. So the guy who was bragging,
all the last 40,
the guy right now. Okay,
I think Ronald Reagan. Okay. Why did Ronald Reagan take out Russia?
Every other president is an idiot. But the guy who's
every other president.
Hold on.
Every other president after Ronald Reagan is an idiot.
Got you. But the guy who's not an idiot is the guy who wanted a Nobel Peace Prize, who was bragging about a ceasefire. And literally a few hours later, Israel broke the ceasefire. Now we're learning that most likely Iran broke the ceasefire. The guy who's not the idiot is the guy who doesn't listen to our own intelligence and listens to Bibi's intelligence in Israel the same way that George W. Bush did and got us into an ill-advised war. But you're saying Donald Trump is not the idiot, but every other president in the last 30 years is for not getting us into a war with Iran.
Let me tell you something else. You know, as one of your other callers very astutely pointed out, when we went to war with Iraq and we got that regime out, Iraq is now not a threat. So we got rid of that regime, and now we got to do the same thing to Iran.
Wait, hold on. So you're saying the war? I would support that. You're saying you supported the war in Iraq?
I say that I support the guy's comment that he made a good point that if we wouldn't have went to war with Iraq, we might have Iraq and Iran right now promoting
first
terrorism
of all,
throughout the
let me
world.
just give you some facts. We were told that there were weapons of mass destruction by George W. Bush and his administration and the Israeli government. That was not a fact. That was a lie. We found Saddam Hussein in a hole in the ground with a pellet gun and a candy bar. Hundreds of thousands of innocent Iraqis died. Thousands of our own troops died. And for you to support or even for a moment say that it was a good thing that we went to war in Iraq is unbelievable that you would make a statement like that. With all due respect, Al, you sound like a warmonger. You really do.
Well, maybe that's a possibility, but sometimes, you know, if the threat is big enough, we got to
Al, do you have any kids? Do you have any kids that are going to be deployed?
No.
You don't. I understand.
What does that have anything?
It has everything. It has everything to do with it, because if you were a parent that had kids that were for our military and you were totally okay with them going to war with Iran, then that might be a different circumstance. But you see, Al, you don't have those kids, do you? Just like you probably don't have. You probably don't have kids that are transgender, but you probably don't like transgenders. You probably don't have kids that are gay. You go after the gay community, and you can laugh until the cows come home. But what would you say to those parents out there that do have kids that are in the military and they don't want their kids going to another ill-advised war? What would you say to them? Because you don't have kids.
Yeah,
and by the way,
that's a good point. That's a good point. I didn't think about that. My point is that most likely wars today are not going to be fought with that many people going out there. It's not going to be a conventional war.
What are you talking about? You don't know what you're talking. You don't know what type of war this is going to be. The fact of the matter is, Lindsey Graham, the Donald Trump. Why do you support people that are draft dodgers, and why do you support people that don't have kids going to war and they're warmongers? Why do you support people like that? You don't have kids yourself, and we're willing to bet you, Al, that if you did have kids, you wouldn't want them to be deployed to Iran. So why is it okay if you don't have kids? Why is it okay for you?
Well, that's a possibility. I would like to have a war with minimal
Yeah.
with minimal
Okay.
troops
Well,
on the
guess
ground.
what? You're not going to do that, Al. You can't have it perfect. And I think it is a good point that I just made, Al. You don't have kids. You don't have kids that are deployed, but you're totally okay with those brave men and women in uniform starting an ill-advised war and going overseas. Guess what? I'm not. And they don't have to be my kids for me to say it's disgusting and it shouldn't happen. Why is it with all you MAGA Republicans out there, until it happens to you and these idiots out there like Lindsey Graham, you want to talk about idiots? Let me tell you something. If you don't have kids that are going to be deployed and you're okay with us going to war, but your opinion might change if you do have kids, then you're the idiot.